And we are no doubt live now. Great. So yes, this is the thing. It says that we've been live 20 seconds already. So it seems to kickstart. So we're talking to Sonja Balzarolo today, all about her great new book, Mr. and Mrs. Business, which is fantastic. It's just a gorgeous book, all sorts of gems in there, and there's Sonja at the back, and there's a quiz in there and everything. It's super exciting. So welcome Sonja. How are you going this morning?
Very good, thank you. Very excited to chat to you about Mr. and Mrs. Business.
Yes, it's going to be great. Where are you tuning in from?
I'm on the Gold Coast.
Oh, wonderful. And I'm here in Sydney, so we're on the east. So hello to you wherever you are tuning in. So I'll just read the little bio here from Sonja. Sonja Balzarolo is a bookkeeper and business foundation specialist who helps family and couple-run businesses not just survive but thrive. Her focus is supporting business owners to create strong business foundations and achieve success without stress. We all want that. Sonja runs Blossoming Business with her husband, John, from their home on the Gold Coast, Australia. Wonderful. Absolutely love it. So, so just before we dive into some great questions around the book and all these things to do with business and bookkeeping, money, time management, and self-care as well, Sonja, just, give us a little bit of a background, a bit of potted history as to how you got to be doing what you're doing today, running your own business and doing all the things.
All
so,
that, yep.
Yeah.
So my background initially is from a corporate career. So I was in the corporate world for around 20 or so years. So long time. So I mainly worked within the healthcare industry and some other small business type industries, doing recruitment, training, business management, lots of operational stuff, setting up systems, processes, all sorts of things like that. So I really got a good understanding of all facets of business in the corporate arena. Then when I left there to have kids in 2014, I had my first daughter in 2014, and then I had my second daughter in 2015. I tried to go back to the corporate world, and it just did not work with two young girls. It was a disaster. So I pretty much figured, okay, well, you know, I need to build a business that's going to work for my family. And so that's how I decided to go into business for myself. As I talk about in the beginning of the book, my initial business started sharing my husband's business. So he was working as a BAS agent and a bookkeeper at the time. He had his own business. So I thought, great idea, I'll join his business and we'll combine together, and I would do business sort of consulting side of things and he would do the bookkeeping side of things. And that didn't work. So for various reasons that I talk about in the book. And so we went our separate ways. And then I actually ended up going into more bookkeeping than sort of business consulting initially, and really just sort of set my foundations for my business around bookkeeping. The hours were perfect for a family type run business. And my husband still does help in my business now. He is a BAS agent and I'm not. So I can't do that extra step for businesses. So if I have clients that need BAS done, then he can do that.
So when you said you went your separate ways, not in the marriage.
No, just the business side of things. And then we've sort of come back together again now as well. And he's actually got his own business now as well, which I, help him out with his bookkeeping and, keep him on track with his organisation and all that sort of stuff. So it works really well now, but obviously through time, and I talk about that in the book as well, we figured out the things that went wrong initially, and we're now able to work on those. And a lot of those things are foundations that are in the book. So the book really comes from a combination of what I learned in business in the corporate world, and I use all of those skills now to help small business owners, but then also my experience as being a couple in business as well. It sort of all comes together.
Yes, it all comes together, and now you work with a lot of people who are couples in business as well. And so tell us, because we're in the launch mode, what is the kind of premise of the book? What is tell us a bit about what it's all about in a nutshell before we go.
So really sharing money, time and self-care strategies for couples in business to help them reduce the stress that comes with growing a business, particularly when you add being a couple or having a family within that mixture. You know, money, time and lack of self-care are already big problems for small business owners. They're some of the top stresses. And I've got some stats in the book around that side of things, and
Yes.
it's something I see commonly in all of the businesses that I work with. But then when you add being a couple in business on top of that, then you know you just have all these extra intricacies. So that's really what the book's about, is helping couples reduce those stress levels that really come from money, time and a lack of self-care.
And I mean, this is the thing too, is that often I think couples can sort of think this is going to be the dream, you know, we're going to work together, it's going to be so romantic, and then oh dear, all the stress and strain. But interestingly, you talk about as well success, you know, and you say in the tagline, you know, how to create success without stress as a couple in business. So I was interested to know, you know, how does someone easily identify what success means to them personally? How can they do that, do you think?
I have actually got an exercise in the book towards the end in the self-care chapters called Defining Success. And it's a really simple exercise, but really it's just understanding what's important to you. And I've put it in the self-care section because we can talk about this later, but self-care to me, I focus more around self-awareness. And so when you can define your idea of success, then, and you're more self-aware of what success actually personally means to you, and it's generally not linked to money. You know, so success for me, for example, right now is about being able to do something creative within my business or outside of my business, and I sort of mix the two together. Being able to be flexible in my business. Not a day goes by, I don't think, to myself, this is amazing that I can do what I want to do when I need to do it. So yesterday I needed to take my daughter out to get a haircut, and she was home from daycare yesterday. She doesn't go on Wednesdays. And, you know, just being able to do what I need to do when I need to do it around what my family needs are, that to me is having a successful business. And, you know, long-term views of success as well, you know, so it's a short-term view of what's success today in your business, and a long-term view of what is a shared vision, or what's my marker for success in the long term. How do I know I've succeeded? And for me, that's moving our family in the future to a farm and being able to do this business from a farm, because I'm building something also that's location independent. I don't need to be based in a certain place. Everything's online and everything's organized and structured and that sort of thing. So yeah, success markers are obviously different for everyone, and you've got to figure out what your own are. So in the book, there's some exercises and some questions that can talk you through, you know, trying to get to the bottom of what's really important versus what you think is important on the outside.
Yes, and that's what's brilliant about Sonja's book, is that it is so practical, and she has all sorts of checklists and places for you to take notes. And she's also got her bonus there, that if you buy the book, there's a book bonus. So it's very practical, it's very interactive, lots of questions. I love that because it's really making people think and engage with the material. Yeah, so you just get, I love that whole section as well where you talk about boundaries, which we'll talk about a bit more in the self-care section. But yeah, so that's, yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's wonderful. And so when it comes to couples, then what are some of the main challenges? You know, that's the success, they can paint this vision for themselves. And so what are the challenges though that they're sort of facing, mainly that you see and that you've seen?
Boundaries that we've just mentioned is a big one. So for a couple in business, particularly, I usually work with people that are around the 1 to 3 year mark. So they're not generally brand new. They've done a little bit, but they're getting to that stage where they need to put some things in place so they can move forward. And so that's sort of that growth phase. And so at that point, you've generally had lots of fun for the first year, setting things up, figuring out who's doing what, but probably not got many systems and things in place. And so that's where things can start to unravel, is when, you know, past the year point, you're starting to get into, you know, you're probably doing long hours, you're probably doing things you don't want to be doing that aren't necessarily in your skill set. You're probably letting your work life go home with you, and you're discussing work issues over dinner, you know, before you go to work in the morning, and then all day at work. And so there really starts to be no start and finish line between your work and then your family life. And I say in the book, I'm sure that every single person that's a couple in business didn't start their business and then become a couple. That would be very rare. Generally, you're a couple first, and then at some point you've decided to go into business together, or one partner's joined the other partner's business to make it easier, save money, that sort of thing. And so it's you know, it's really important that those boundaries are talked about and discussed and put in place to let you, they actually will help you grow your business.
And what about the roles as well? Like, have you got very clearly organized roles so that John's not sort of putting his nose in with what you're doing and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, look, in general, yes, there is always a bit of a grey line, and, you know, things get, you know, stepped over sometimes. And it's just got to all, you know, it's just got to be about communication and discussing that. But yes, definitely having a discussion about, this is what I'll look after, this is what you look after. In the book, there is a section that allows you to create job descriptions, which for people that have never even had the discussion, I think that's a really good place to start, because even if you don't follow them to the letter, you've had a discussion about, this is my areas of responsibility and these are yours, and you trust each other to then work with those boundaries and those areas. So if they cross over, it's fairly obvious and you can have a discussion around it. Whereas if you didn't really know who's responsible for what, there's a lot of duplicating of jobs, not trusting each other that something's getting done, and it just creates more problems than it's worth. Yeah.
Brilliant. And on page 22, you talk about conscious business coupling questions, and there's 9 questions. So what do these questions help couples understand?
Yes. So conscious business coupling, obviously it came from the reference of Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin when they consciously uncoupled. And I was thinking about how commonly couples enter into a business for convenience a lot of the time, not necessarily because you've both got these brilliant skill sets that brilliantly combine together. Sometimes that happens, but lots of couples, one person has got a business and the other person joins the business to help out because it could be deemed as cheaper than outsourcing that to someone else or hiring someone else, which, you know, is a definite positive with couples joining together like that. But there's generally not a conscious discussion and decision around, is this going to be good for our relationship? How is this practically going to work, particularly if you have kids in the picture? Because how are you going to take holidays if you're both responsible in the business? How are you going to manage school pickup and drop off? Like all of those things, the practicalities of being a couple in business, then sort of start to come into play. And so besides, you know, we haven't even discussed the fact that where can you work together or not? You know, can you really trust each other in a business to do that? Can you set boundaries that mean you're not talking about work 24/7? And so, you know, having conscious decisions around that is far better than unconsciously going into business together or staying in business together when it might not be the right thing for you. I mean, not every couple has to be in business together, and not every couple can do the work required to stay in business for the long term together. Sometimes it is better to hire someone in, you know, than stay together and affect your relationship in the long term.
Exactly, and I reckon there's a whole heap of sort of regrouping every so often to see if both parties are still in there and really enjoying it, or if someone at some point wants to opt out.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Or even just bring someone else in that can pick up some of the things that that partner is no longer enjoying doing or is not within their skill set, and it was just a filler until, you know, you could get to the point where you hire someone else in, because that can often take stress away. If you just outsource some of the things that one partner's not, that is stressing that partner out, you know, that can solve a lot of problems as well.
Yes, so it's a lot of communication. So when we get into also the nuts and bolts of the book, you've divided it into 3 parts that you mentioned before: money, time, self-care. And so, yeah, tell us a bit about why you decided to choose those 3 and divide it into those sections.
Yep. So money and time are the premise of my business, basically. So the helping people manage their money is the bookkeeping side. Helping people manage their time is the business systems and processes side of what I do. When I initially started just doing bookkeeping, I would find that every time I work with a client, inevitably we'd get the book sorted out and that would be ticking along, but then all these other things would pop up. And because of my background and because I love helping businesses, I naturally would then start looking at systems and processes and things to make businesses run more efficiently, and those sorts of things. And so the money and time side of things was fairly a no-brainer for me. You know, that was what the book would always be about. And then also along my journey of, you know, building my business over the last 4 or 5 years, self-care has been a realization to me in the last few years that the first few years were a whirlwind. I had very young children. I was working late at night, working long hours, feeling like a bad mum and a bad business owner and all of that stuff. And so self-care, when I came to the realization that I had to be more self-aware and care for myself, you know, as much as I was trying to put into my family and my business, that would make all the difference. And so self-care then became something I could see that besides money and time being big stresses for business owners, having a lack of self-care was just as big a problem. And that would feed in nicely to being a whole, I guess, offering to a business owner. And because of the types of people I was working with as well, they were very similar to what I had been through with families and couples and home-based business owners. And so putting the self-care in there really just tied it all together, you know, to help business owners as best I could. And also because I'm sort of coming to a point where doing one-on-one work is very, you know, I can only do so much in the day, and there's, you know, I don't really want to continue doing, I don't want to add lots and lots of, you know, clients to my workload. And so being able to write a book and tie all that together and help more people that I can't do one-on-one work with, and eventually turn that next year into some e-courses and online training that people can do in those sections. It just is a natural progression of growing my business.
Oh, brilliant. And when you talk about systems there, you mentioned business systems, that you did the bookkeeping, and then you would often see that the systems were all over the place. Just for the audience, people watching, what sort of systems within the business do you mean exactly?
So there's lots of different systems you can put into your business based on what your business is all about and what you need and what stage you're at in business. A lot of this to me is there's that simple what I call operational foundations. So that is how you do the things in your business and being mindful of how you do them, then tracking how you do them, putting them into a process. And then at some point being able to hand that process and use that process to train someone else and outsource that, you know, that's a natural progression of growing a business. So there's that side of things. There's also online systems that help you automate things in your business, and that then becomes a time saver, efficiency and productivity producer. So things like Trello, you know, have changed the way I run my business. I still use paper-based diary, but I also duplicate that on Trello. So everything I'm doing is on Trello. It's also a system to store all of my ideas, my future projects. I don't have random books and scraps of paper and post-it notes all over the place like I would have done in the past.
Yeah.
And also I use Trello as an operational hub as well, almost like, I posted about this the other day. Small in corporate world, every business would have an intranet, so everyone knows where to go to get everything they need. But a small business, generally, I haven't seen many businesses with that, and it's your operational hub. So that is a huge time waster when you don't have an operational hub, because you're constantly looking for the same thing over and over again. Where did I file that document again? What's my brand hex colors again? Where do I find the latest logo? So using something like Trello, I use it as an operational hub as well and put all of that in there. And Trello is not the only option. That's the one that I use and love. And I am going to create a course on that because I do love it so much, particularly using it like an intranet for a small business. I love that concept. And I'm developing that. But yeah, there's others like Asana, more of a project management one to me than necessarily being able to use it as an operational hub. ClickUp is another one. I'm looking at that for a client at the moment. So while I love Trello and that's what I use, it's not always right for a client. So I do look at other things as well, but that's basically the systems and processes I talk about.
Right, yes, so that everything's very ship shape. It reminds me a bit of the E-Myth, it's very E-Mythy.
Yes.
So yeah, brilliant. So so the first section that you talk about is money. And so what are the main goals that you see couples tend to have with money? They're like, and then and then what are their kind of roadblocks or challenges? So when with the whole money talk, things that you see and hear.
So with the types of businesses that I work, the lack of money goals is probably the issue rather than having the goals in the first place. And also the lack of knowledge of your numbers. So I work with lots of businesses that just through no fault of their own, they're running their businesses, they're trying to do a lot of things themselves, that knowing their numbers is far down on the to-do list. As long as there's money in the bank and they can pay their bills, then necessarily knowing their numbers until it gets to tax time or until there's a problem or a cash flow issue, then it's not generally something that's looked at closely.
And why is that? Do you think it's some sort of avoidance thing? Is this like when you're talking about this table that you've got in here?
Yeah, so that table is for the personal finances. So I have actually got in the money section a personal finances section and a business finances section.
Brilliant.
I'd love the personal finances section to be in there because I like people to, particularly couples in business that are generally reliant on their business for all of their income for their whole family, then understanding what your personal finances are, how much you owe, trying to draw, bring down your debts, all that sort of thing, but knowing first up what that is and what it looks like and how much you need to earn from your business. So that it's not a constant pressure on you to say, oh my gosh, we're not paying our bills, we're not covering our bills, not earning enough. Just trying to get on the forefront and understand where you're at with all of that. So I start with personal and then move into the business side of things. And that is more just around the education side.
There's these incredible, tables for you to do your financial purpose and business finances analysis. It's really fantastic. And so, so why do you think that when you say know your numbers and people are often why do you think there is this not wanting to be right across the numbers and knowing exactly what's going on?
I think a lack of knowledge really from, we don't get taught these things at school necessarily, how to manage a P&L and how to read a balance sheet and how to understand whether you're making a profit or not and how to break down the cost of, if you're a product in a business or even a service business, how much it costs you to actually deliver that product or service. Those things are not taught necessarily in school, particularly for small business owners and entrepreneurs that are, coming up with great ideas and getting them out there. It's just, I think, just a lack of education and understanding. And probably it just seems like too big a task. And I think, the other problem is that if you bring on a bookkeeper or an accountant who's not necessarily invested in making sure that you're educated around your numbers, it's very easy to consider that something that you outsource and that your accountant and bookkeeper is across that stuff. so you don't need to be, where that's not, you know, it's not very conducive, you know, for you to grow your business and make decisions. I really like to put it back to making decisions. And so I always encourage people to make decisions for their business from an informed position. And if you don't know your numbers, then you can't make an informed decision. So going out and buying assets for your business and things when you're not necessarily sure if you can afford that right now, yeah, it just puts you in precarious positions later on down the track, potentially cash flow issues and all that sort of stuff.
And quite often I hear people, because with business coaching as well, that I do a bit of business coaching, and often with numbers it's kind of like, oh, you know, you get the sort of, oh, it's boring, you know, you know. So, how can people sort of reframe this and see it as kind of, you know, interesting and exciting and helpful, rather than dull and boring, and get the groan coming up?
Yeah. Well, I think aligning yourself with a bookkeeper or an accountant who is invested in helping you understand those things. So you don't need to sit there and be crunching numbers all day as a small business owner who couldn't care less about bookkeeping. That you find that boring. But finding someone who's willing to invest the time to teach you what you need to know, and that potentially they can provide those figures to you, but then you understand what they mean. And then you can make decisions from that. I think, you know, that is a good way to go. Also, money mindset is obviously a, you know, a whole other issue. There's also, we didn't even talk about limiting beliefs, and, you know, talking about money is an uncomfortable thing for a lot of people. And so that helps, you know, sort of curb on the avoidance factor of money in your business as well. Yeah, so sort of trying to break down those things. But, you know, I'm not a money mindset expert. You know, someone like Denise Duffield-Thomas would be a great person to, you know, I've mentioned a few of her books in the back of my book as resources. She's fantastic with that side of things for business owners. I think that'd be a great place to start.
Yes, because that's right. For anyone listening, there is the practical and there is the psychological. And so if you find that, yeah, you sort of procrastinate and there seems to be something more at play than just sort of pulling your socks up and getting on with it, then it could be something to do with limitations, limiting beliefs, mindset issues, and that sort of thing. So really interesting. So then if we move to time, which is the second section in your book, you know, fantastic section. On page 72 to 74, you discuss decision-making, multitasking, and fast action. Yeah, can you share a bit more about your philosophy around time? And those three jumped out to me. And yeah, so what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so those basically came from when I was writing the book. I was reflecting on why I am so organised and how I worked through those things in the corporate world. And to me, those three things really stood out. And so, you know, being able to make decisions quickly was a huge one. Because in the corporate world, you can't sit on things for weeks at a time. Whereas a small business owner, you can actually sometimes do that, you know, and delay things, procrastinate, all those sorts of things. So, yeah, making fast decisions was definitely one of the things that I learned in the corporate world, and I now sort of use that in my own business now. I'm very quick to make decisions. I don't look back. I just, you know, look at the facts, make a decision, and then move forward. And the fast action sort of comes into that as well. So making a decision and then actually acting on it and making it happen, you know, that also sort of plays together really, and being able to do those things. And you know, they're not things that you can learn how to do overnight. You're not going to read those couple of little paragraphs in my book and go, right, I'm now a great decision maker and I can do fast action. But that was just my insight into, you know, some of the ways I think that you can move forward as a business owner, particularly if you're prone to procrastination, thinking about how you make decisions. Are you taking too long to decide on things and take action? And multitasking was, yeah, that was really just, my own musings on that again as well, around the fact that we put too much pressure on ourselves to be multitaskers, particularly as women, when in actual fact the psychology behind it says that multitasking doesn't really help at all. It makes you less productive, because when you swap from one task to another very quickly, back and forth, you're losing so much time of the time that you have. And when you're a small business owner, particularly if you're a mum in business like I am, time is precious. And so you certainly don't want to be wasting. I can't remember what the stats are, but when you move from one task, get distracted and come off that task and come back, it's something like 11 to 20 minutes that it takes you to get back into focusing on the task that you go back to. So multitasking really isn't a thing that we do really well. Sure, you can do lots of things at once, you can move between lots of things, but the efficiency and the productivity you get out of that is not what you're looking for as a small business owner. So things like, there's lots of things that can get you out of multitasking, like the Pomodoro way of doing things, small bits of time, and giving yourself a little break and come back to it. Batching is another great way, doing, a set of things at once. And really just being very conscious of your time and how you're using it.
Oh, I love that. And so so also in terms of the third section, because sometimes time is running away. Self-care, which is your final section. So we touched on that at the beginning, and I think it ties in so much to the success element as well, because making time for yourself and the self-care and makes you feel good. You don't want to arrive at some top of ladder of success and feel completely worn out.
Yes.
So, what attracted you to devoting a section on self-care, and why do you think this is so important for people to take on and like almost have a whole focus and a whole plan around it, not just a bit of a massage once randomly?
Yes. And so for me in the book, I explain what I mean by self-care. So I really focus around the self-awareness, because if you understand how to bring the best version of yourself into your business and into your life, then you're going to be able to create the success that you want. If you're not fully understanding how to bring the best version of yourself, to your business and your family, then you're just going to feel like you're constantly pulled in different directions. That, like I mentioned, in my first couple of years, I felt like a bad mum and a bad business owner because I was pulled in all sorts of directions. So when when you're thinking about self-care from the point of view of how I look at it, it's only going to enhance your business by having a level of self-care and a strategy for your own self-care. And so the self-awareness side, the first steps there's a couple of personality free tests that I've got links to in the book, where you can just do a little bit of self-awareness work if you've never done anything like that before, and they give great insights, even if it's just a reminder of what your strengths are. What do you really want to be doing? And that will give you some hints to, am I doing those things in the business? Or am I just doing all the things that I really hate doing, like bookkeeping as an example? Am I doing bookkeeping, but it's really not my strengths? And really understanding that side of things, and then building that into your work life. But then outside of work also, I talk about who you are outside of your business and outside of your couple. And your family. We often, as we get older, and this is not just for couples and families, all of us, as we get older, we've forgotten about things that we loved doing when we were younger. And so there's really good keys there to go back and explore some of those things and bring them into your life. And if you are working from a level of self-awareness, of understanding what you love doing, what really lights you up and brings you joy, and then how you can also bring your skill sets best into your business, all of those avenues can really create such a difference to how you show up in your business, because you're feeling more happy, fulfilled, motivated. There's nothing more unmotivating in your business than doing things you hate doing.
Yes, that's right. And I mean, the thing is with business, I find, and I say to clients as well, you probably say them to yours, is that quite a lot of the day-to-day stuff that we do in our businesses, is not glamorous and fun and all the rest of it. It might look like that on social media when we're doing a fun IGTV or something, but quite a lot is, yes, doing those organising things, entering into Trello, paying invoices, talking to someone that you might be hiring, arranging things. So it's not sort of really exciting stuff. So in a day, if your day is sort of quite back to back with things that aren't overly exciting, how do you think you can just sort of add little bursts of fun things or something into your day? Because I think the drudge gets to people.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Well, I definitely think having a full day of those types of things is, first of all, not the best idea, because that's just going to completely drain you. And what would normally take you split across a couple of days in smaller segments or batch together, what would normally take you, let's say, a couple of hours might actually take you the whole day, because it's so unmotivating. You've got to constantly, find ways to keep yourself going, or you'll start procrastinating. And that's a fantastic book over there, I might just read a couple of pages of that, or go on social media or whatever it is. So any way that you can I guess give yourself the ability to do things that have to be done, but not in whole blocks of time, break them up. And also there in one of the sections in the book, I think it's in the defining success section, I talk about, once you've defined what success looks like for you, then what are some ways that you can bring some extra things into your work day that might break it up, or allow you just to have some motivation on your desk about things that you really enjoy doing, or those sorts of things. So yeah, there's lots of ways that you can break it up, but I definitely think just understanding how you best show up in the day, and if that's not doing lots of things you hate doing for a whole day, then don't do that to yourself. Yeah.
And I think a lot of us go into business, as you said right at the top of the interview, so that we can have the freedom, like as you said, to be able to take your daughter to the haircut, or to have coffee with someone, or go for a walk in nature. So yeah, I think if you can put in those little rewards as well, so as Sonja's saying, if you do a couple of hours of something, and then part of your success thing is that you love the fact that you live only 20 minutes from the ocean, and you can go for a little walk, or down into near the park, or take the dog or something, then maybe you do that, you try and incorporate that. And I think taking things slow as well, we don't have to be in too much of a mad rush. So if you can, take again that time to sort of go for a walk without feeling like you've got to madly do it in 15, maybe you can take 40 minutes or something.
Yeah,
so,
that's it.
So I love that. And now you also, there's this great quiz at the back of the book. So yeah, tell us a bit about the quiz and what that's all about, and what that does for people. And
so when I was writing the book, I really I've put the quiz at the back, but in actual fact I suggest in the front of the book that you do it first and just go to the back to do it, just for logistics. It's at the back. But to me, talking about money in particular, but also about just time and stress in general in your business, particularly as a couple, talking about those things can be stressful. And so I wanted to put something initially in the book that opened a conversation for a couple who might be working through this book together, to open the lines of communication, a few light-hearted questions. So they're not serious questions, they're very light-hearted questions, but really just to open those lines of communication. And, it does give you a result at the end where you can get an idea on which sections of the book might be either triggers for you, or areas that you just need to pay a little bit more attention to. So it does give you, some sort of result at the end, but the main concept of it is opening communication and not making this such a serious thing, and also not making it something that couples are going to argue over. Well, now you've said this and now we have to do this and that sort of thing. It's not about that at all. It's about just trying to open that communication.
Yeah, brilliant. And I love it because there's two quizzes there, one for you and one for your partner. And
Yeah.
so it's a bit like the love languages, you know, you each do it and then you open that communication. Brilliant, because
Yeah.
this whole thing about time and money and self-care is about that communication with yourself and inquiry and how am I traveling here, and also with your partner in the business, you know,
Yeah.
how are we really going. And so so that's wonderful. So anyone who gets the book and buys it, which you'll do after you've watched this, is that you will go to the back and you want to go through that quiz, and it's fun and it's quick and you can just go through it and ask each other how you're traveling. And so as we come into the wrap up then, what are you know, your final 3 pieces of wisdom?
Yes.
Get more aligned with their goals and, you know, what they see as success in their lives. What are some final Sonja thoughts around thoughts and together? And
my biggest probably takeaways for someone reading the book would be, when I was writing the book, I did a post in a Facebook group for couples in business, and I asked what the top stresses were for them working business, and by far the largest one was not having a shared vision. So one person was thinking we're working towards this, and the other person's thinking no, we're working towards this. And so, yeah, to me, fundamentally, I mention it in the 6 foundations in the foundation chapter at the beginning of the book. One of them is creating a shared vision, because if you're not working towards the same thing, then you've got a whole lot of other problems to deal with before even talking about money, time and self-care. So definitely creating a shared vision. And there's some tips and things on that in the book. I don't go into a huge amount of detail. That could potentially be a workshop or something, you know, later down the track, because it's such a big thing. So shared vision, and just understanding each other's roles. We talked about job descriptions a little bit. Whether you go down the road of writing a job description or not, it's really just that discussion and that building a level of trust in, I'm going to look after this, you're going to look after that, and things all come together and smoothly work. There's, you know, we're not wasting time doubling up on things and not trusting each other, that sort of thing. And then probably the third one would be just setting boundaries. So, you know, really being conscious of work-life boundaries and where one stops and the other starts, and putting some things in place. There's lots of examples in the book in the boundary section on, you know, I'm referring a lot to work-life balance, but there's also things like client boundaries, you know, not answering your phone after 5:30 at night, or not continuing to put up with clients who don't pay you and have months worth of outstanding bills, all those sorts of things. There's lots of boundaries to work with that can then flow on to stresses if you don't put them in place.
Yeah, wonderful. So many gems and just so many things that are critical. And it's interesting with the vision, isn't it? Because I think sometimes people can just have the assumption that the vision is the same. I mean, well, obviously this is what we're what we're working towards, and the other one's like, well, actually, So that's so fascinating. So yeah, if that's something that you're not quite sure of, you want to be getting to that quiz, you want to be really having these conversations.
Yes.
You know, what is your vision? What are your ideas?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Yes, not in your partner's head, you can't know. So that's so really, really wonderful. It's a real gem of a book. Sonja's great, and we've known each other for quite a few years now, and she's just wonderful. So so if people want to know more about the book and where to get it, and where do people go, and how do they follow you, and all of those things?
So I'm pretty much blossoming business everywhere. So the website is blossomingbusiness.com.au, and there is a Mr. and Mrs. Business book section at the top where you can go and check it out and then buy it from all the places you can buy it. Instagram and Facebook are both at Blossoming Business. LinkedIn is my personal one.
Blossoming
that's
Business.
Yes.
There, lovely, and I love that because it's kind of got that feminine touch as well as down in the strategy of as well, which we need.
Yes, exactly.
So really, really great. So thank you so much, Sonja. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
And so we will be in touch. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.